Russian officials say they have no plans to invade Ukraine. That was the message during negotiations with the U.S. today in Geneva. U.S. officials are seeking to avert a military conflict. Roughly 100,000 Russian troops are stationed near the Ukrainian border. Last month, Russian officials threatened military action as they presented demands for the U.S. and NATO to roll back military activity in Ukraine and parts of Eastern Europe. U.S. and NATO officials say many of Russia's proposals are non-starters. During a press conference today, a Russian official admitted both countries are far from reaching an agreement.
U.S. and Russia, in some ways, have opposite views on what needs to be done. And it doesn't help that on some of the issues, there might be basis for future exchanges and hopefully also some progress, but from our perspective, it would only be possible provided that we find a way towards a solution on a legally binding security guarantees on no expansion, further expansion of NATO and to others.
Discussions will continue in Brussels and Vienna later this week. Representatives from NATO and other international partners are set to join the negotiations. Joining us now for more on this, CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis. What do you know, or what do we know so far about today's negotiations? And thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Jericka. So according to the readouts that we've gotten now from both sides, the picture that emerged today was murky, but not entirely bleak. And maybe relatively speaking from the Russian side, almost something like upbeat. The Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, who was leading the negotiations for the U.S. side, called the talks today frank and forthright. She called them candid and businesslike, but she stressed that they were talks and not negotiations. So they were not going through a draft treaty line by line. They were throwing a lot of ideas on the table. Crucially, for their part, as you pointed out, the Russians did indicate to their American counterparts that they do not have an intention of invading Ukraine at this moment, and that there was no reason to expect any escalatory steps. U.S. officials are skeptical of that kind of pronouncement for very obvious reasons. One, there have been no signs of de-escalation from the 100,000 troops that have amassed at Ukraine's border thus far. And two, they've heard these kinds of excuses from the Russians before. All Secretary Sherman would say when asked about it today was that I don't think we know the answer to this question yet, the question of whether the Russians will now de-escalate. They can prove that they have no intention, she said, of invading Ukraine, she said, by returning their troops to barracks.
But, you know, we have Holly Williams on the ground, and she has been talking about the number of lives lost in Ukraine and their belief that the Russian military is, in fact, ready to make a move. So what ultimately do we expect to come from these talks? Because it feels like we've been here before.
Absolutely. And one of the central questions that has emerged for a lot of U.S. diplomats doing this work is, how serious is President Putin really about achieving a diplomatic outcome in these talks? Are they really about scoring some diplomatic concessions that benefit Russia, or are they about creating a pretext for a military invasion? It was a relief today that the Russian side insisted what they've said before, that they don't intend to invade. But again, seasoned negotiators are taking this with a big grain of salt, knowing the Russians and their playbook, and said that in terms of future conversations, the U.S. is offering to meet again to talk about some avenues that were fruitful, not necessarily NATO expansion, but things like the future of certain missile systems and about the size and the scope and the visibility of certain military exercises in Europe.
And that's even scary, just knowing, you know, people have the power to do certain things, but let's negotiate on how we're going to use them or if we're going to use them. U.S. and NATO officials have both characterized the security demands brought forth by Russia as largely non-negotiable. So do experts believe, or can there be negotiations to avoid a military conflict in Ukraine, if anything?
Sure. So, I mean, you heard the Russian deputy foreign minister saying that the top priority for them is this legal guarantee about NATO not expanding eastward. They've insisted since the get-go that this is the one thing that they want to come away with. But, of course, Western powers have said that is an absolute non-starter. And the deputy secretary reiterated that today, saying we will not allow anyone to slam close NATO's open door policy, because it's at the crux of their security guarantee. Anybody who's interested and meets the criteria would be allowed to join. So that, of course, poses a problem, if not an impasse, for future diplomatic talks if this is the one thing that the Russians are really going to dig their heels in on. Today's talks took place in a forum that were bilateral, just the U.S. and Russia. It was called the Strategic Stability Dialogue, and that really focuses on nuclear arms, arms control, things like hypersonic weapons, space and cyber weapons. So it was really a specific conversation limited to those kinds of topics. We will see an expansion of the number of interlocutors and the number of topics in the engagements later this week.
And when we talk about what's going to happen later this week with the NATO representatives and other international officials that are going to join in these negotiations, what type of influence do you think these other leaders will have in these discussions?
Sure. So, I mean, the most important part of the talks to come is that they're going to include other stakeholders, other European powers, other NATO representatives. They're going to include Russian delegations, obviously, but on Thursday, the OSCE, Ukraine is actually going to have a seat at the table. So these are different settings. They're going to include different topics. The NATO-Russia Council meeting on Wednesday, you can expect the expansion question to be front and center. That council has met a handful of times in its history, but was really stalled since July of 2019 amid these really worsening relations with Moscow. So you can expect that to be the most pertinent forum where Moscow will make its case on this expansion question. On Thursday at the OSCE, again, this is where Ukraine actually has a seat at the table, but it's alongside 50-plus other members, and they can discuss topics from arms control to conflict resolution to counterterrorism and other areas. So I think what you can take away from today is that no wholesale breakthroughs are going to be possible at any of these venues. They're, in fact, highly unlikely because these are really complex issues being discussed in a variety of settings by a variety of stakeholders. So the pace of dialogue is likely to be piecemeal, incremental, but crucially, it will be successful if they can maintain this sort of fragile stasis at Ukraine's border with Russia.
Yeah, and just like the headline says there, Russian officials deny plans to invade Ukraine. So this is what we can go off of right now. Everything else is negotiations and talks. Olivia Gazis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Jericka.